Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. It is day 2 of having been in Iceland. Today was one of those days where when I tell you what actually happened, it may not seem like much has happened, but it was like one of those days where all the little details just stood out and really forced me to be present in the moment. It was just like when you go to a new place and you see things you don't typically see, your brain is on high alert, taking in all the detail. It was like that today. So I know I heard a lot of stuff today, but I don't remember a lot of it. I ended up waking up at 5:30. I fell asleep at like 9:30 p.m. last night and I woke up at 5:30 and breakfast wasn't until 8. It's too early. But what struck me about that was just how quiet it was. You can actually hear a little bit of it now. It's like, wow, it rarely gets that quiet at home. I ended up waking up at around 7 because I really needed a shower. And I'm still on the fence about whether I'm actually sharing my bathroom with anyone or not. This morning I thought I definitely was, but I actually found out since then that other people have bathrooms in their room. While I don't have a bathroom in my room, it is like directly across the hall for me. And I have a room all to myself, which for me is the commodity I cared more about. I have no problem sharing a bathroom with other people. But I do think I'm sharing it with maybe the employees because I did walk in and the seat was up, and that's not something that I do. Yeah, I got like a nice shower this morning, and the shower was the easiest working shower that I've operated in a while. Usually it takes me some time to figure it out, but there are 2 knobs towards the top. One side controls the temperature, and they have the temperature in degrees Celsius. And then the other side controls whether it's on or off, which is perfect. You determine how hot it is, and you can turn it on and off at will, which means I can do one of my favorite features of a shower, which is turn off the water flow when I'm just like lathering my hair with shampoo or like soaping up my body. So that way I'm not wasting water. I was like, oh, this is smart. The shower head was detachable. It was on a hose and you could move it around, and I did brick the shower, but I fixed it. And then I came out shortly after that. I heard other people here. We were knitting, waiting for breakfast to start. Breakfast was very good today. There was like a nice buffet style. There was cereal with yogurt. There was different types of bread with peanut butter and bananas and honey and jam. There were like different meats and vegetables laid out. I had some cheese that was laid out, and they had a mix of juices. I had the juice blend. It tastes like the type of blend that people often associate with tropical. It's probably the best way to describe it. And then part of the plan for today was to split the retreat group into 2 different groups. And it was based on knitting ability. So people who were not as comfortable with knitting, the beginner knitters, were having their class in the morning, and the advanced knitters were then going to go riding in the morning. And then in the afternoon, they were going to switch. So since I've been knitting for over 20 years, I figured I'm not a beginner when it comes to knitting, so I decided to do the riding first. I tried on my riding gloves for the first time. I hadn't tried them on when I ordered them because it said they had to be brand new to enter Iceland. And in case TSA opened up my bag, I wanted the packaging to still be there. So I was like, yeah, see, they're not even out of the bag. They're brand new. But they ended up fitting perfectly. Like they were the perfect representation of fits like a glove. I ended up walking over to the barn with a couple other people from the group, and we just had to wait for people to arrive. About 6 of us entered total. It was me and a bunch of the older ladies plus the husband and wife team that were really, really into riding. And the guy was definitely the complete beginner of riding out of that group. They started bringing in the horses, the reins. The horses were being brought in by the people who work at the ranch. They were tying them to the stalls. We were being taught by the barn manager, and she just asked us for like our riding experience. So once she got a sense of our riding experience, she knew what horses to give us. Then after that, they started setting up the horses for us. So the first thing that had to happen with the horses were brushing the horses. And one of the other ladies in the group was like, well, can I brush the horse? The staff was like, go ahead. So I was like, well, this seems like something I could do to get used to being around the horse. So I picked a horse and I started brushing the horse, and I watched the other lady do it real quick first, so I knew exactly what I had to do. Pretty much you just brush along with the grain of the hair, and you do it around the belly area of the horse where the saddle would go to brush away any sweat that would develop there. I ended up finishing one horse and its buddy was right there, and the horses were really close together, and I didn't know how to move the horses apart. I ended up asking for help, and Christy ended up showing me to push the horse back. She almost did a body block in a way. It was like she put herself in between the horse and then pushed the horse in the direction she wanted it to go, so I could reach that area to brush the horse. So then I ended up brushing the other horse as well. And at that point, it's like, well, I guess I better be assigned a horse. She's like, I have this other horse for you here. This is who you're going to ride today. And thank you for brushing the other horses. He's not brushed, the one that I'm giving you. So just give him a quick brush and you'll be good. So I ended up brushing the other horse as well, that I was actually going to be riding. And I was told his name was Fifelt, which I remember solely because his name is the Icelandic word for dandelion, which is such an adorable name. At first I misheard it and thought it was Fifi. And the person who ended up riding him later on in the day also thought his name was Fifi, but no, it's Fifelt. I was told Fifelt is a good horse. He knows the directions of what he wants to do, but he's also a pretty fidgety horse. He doesn't like the reins being very tight. And if he just bucks his head, don't give him any mind. That's just how he is. And it's like, okay. It felt like the horse had a fidgety horse form of ADHD. And it's like, well, I'm fidgety too, so we're going to get along well. So there's an arena attached to the barn where like the horses can prance around inside the barn. So I was told how to handle the reins of Fifeld. And then we guided the horses to inside the arena. And then first we walked around the arena with the horse just to get used to walking along with the horse. It seems like a bonding activity, which honestly is a very smart idea, because even for those who had ridden horses before, they hadn't ridden these horses. There's all sorts of different personalities with different horses, so you gotta figure out what this horse's personality is, yeah? That's why I never really trust people who go like, if you don't like any dog, I don't like you. And it's like, it depends on the dog, yeah? Dogs have different personalities, and some personalities are not that great. We were told to mount the horse, but they were going around to us one by one to make sure we were comfortable mounting the horse, and I wasn't going to attempt to get on the horse without someone else there to make sure that I was doing it right, because horses are big animals. We're going to make sure that if we are going to do this activity, that we're going to do it in a safe way. One of the ranch owners was also there, the horse half of the ranch owners, and he came around and he explained to me how to get onto the horse, which was pretty interesting. I didn't need the mount, it turns out, which the good thing about Icelandic horses is that they're pretty short, so I probably didn't have as much to go. It turns out the way you do it is you move the reins over the head so the reins are closer to you, and you are putting yourself in the same direction as the horse's head when you're going onto it. And then you put your left foot in the stirrup, and then you grab onto the saddle or the mane right by the neck, and then keeping close to the horse, you lift your right foot over so you're approaching it diagonally, and then you slide yourself into the deepest part of the saddle. Once I got into the saddle, the ranch owner helped put my foot into the stirrups, which the foot did not go as far into the stirrups as I was expecting it to be. It feels like the closest thing that I've done to riding a horse is riding a bike. It surprised me that my foot in the stirrups, it went on the ball of my foot instead of the arch of my foot, which is where the bike pedal would be if I was riding a bike. But I was just making sure that my foot was there. He had to rearrange the stirrups a couple times because my legs were longer than expected, which is true. Most of my height is in my legs. When I got up on the horse, the owner explained to me how to hold the reins. So the way that you hold the reins is almost like a hang sign in a way. You have the rein like in between the pinky, and then it slides up around this way, and then your thumb is on top of the rein, and the thumb acts as a lock on the rein, so that way it doesn't slide on you. And you do this on both sides, and then you're sitting up straight and your hands are like closer to here when you're riding the horse. Also, to sit in the saddle, I had to find the deepest part of the saddle and actually slide into it. I also had to work on holding my legs in the proper way. Like in other things that was big of a horse, if you end up moving around, then you end up getting strapped into the vehicle, and if it bounces up and down, you don't have to worry about falling out, like roller coaster rides, cars, things like that. And the horse, there's no such mechanism. The horse is strapped in, but you're not. I was like, oh, this is a different sensation. But then we were told to have our horse walk around in a group just to get the feel of the horse. When we were doing that, the barn manager started walking around with me and explaining to me about how to better sit on the horse, and also telling me more information about the horse to make me feel more comfortable about riding him. And she was like, well, if you feel comfortable like going faster than a walk today, you can. It's like, well, yeah, I feel pretty good on the horse. I wasn't really nervous about it, but it was just a bunch of new sensations everywhere. I felt sensations in parts of my body that I have not felt in a while. After we were walking around with the horse, we got a chance to try a trot. I think it's a trot. Other people are saying tolt. I don't know if those are different, but we were trotting around the ring and it was like, oh yeah, this is hard. And the boobs felt it. Yeah, I was wearing a sports bra. It was not enough. I think I might have to wear 2 bras tomorrow, which is something I pretty much never do to help hold them down, because I don't particularly think I have big boobs. I think my boobs are like average size for my body, but I felt them going up and down when the horse went fast. It was also a little bit difficult to navigate the legs portion, because in order to actually sit on the horse, the bottom of the legs have to be relaxed and the heel has to go down, because anything that like goes into the horse that is from below the knee is a signal to go faster. So if you don't want to accidentally cause the horse to go faster, you have to make sure that your legs aren't going in. I was shown how to turn the horse and have the horse stop, which is all very intuitive, unlike many electronic things that you learn. Basically, you pull the horse in the direction in which you want his head to turn, and you pull on both in order to make it stop. After we did some trotting and some walking around the arena, they decided to take us on a walk out in the countryside. Also, when we were walking the arena, I did have to have Fifold stop quite a bit, because Fifold just started following another horse and his head was right in the other horse's butt. And it's like, dude, you are too close to that other horse. Do you really want to spend the entire trip smelling the horse's butthole? Please back up. Yeah, Icelandic horses have no problems being near each other. Fifold did find his way towards the gate that was going to be released, and before they opened up the gate, the bar manager actually took Fifold and guided him towards the back of the group. I was like, yeah, we don't want him going first. We want him to know he's following the group today. And it's like, okay, I have no problem with that. So we go on the trail and we're walking along. At this point, I'm still trying to get comfortable with it. And some of the other ladies are shouting advice and they're like, if you're okay with that. And the ladies who are shouting advice to me are the ones who have been working with horses with decades. And it's like, please, I will take all the advice. I'll take all the pointers you have for me. I know I'm definitely in beginner mode. I will take anything that will make this easier. So they said, treat your legs like a sack of potatoes and to let them relax and slide into the saddle that way. That will make it easier to control the horse, and they told me to shorten the reins. I got more comfortable as time went on. Towards the beginning, he was walking really slow. He got somewhat far away from the group, and then the road came and he was about to turn. I was like, no, follow the group. And then he ended up going closer to the group, where he proceeded to follow behind another horse's butt really, really close. And then we did some trotting. We ended up going down a hill, which was like, oh, this is an interesting sensation, because with bike riding, going down a hill is both exhilarating and terrifying, because it's fun to have the wind go in your face really fast, but also if it goes faster and faster, you can't control the bike, so you're constantly like pressing the brakes the entire time. But with the horse goes down the hill the same way you do, where they like carefully plot down the steps. So I actually felt more secure going down the hill with the horse. And then there were also times where they just trotted through the water, and it's like, wow, this is pretty amazing. Even if the horses trot through the water, it doesn't necessarily kick back out to you because of how deep the river actually is. We ended up like trotting out into the middle of a river. There were beautiful flowers along the way. It was beautiful sights. Although I did spend half of it staring at the horse, because it's like, this is just like learning a new vehicle. You gotta pay attention to every little detail. After that, it's like, you can let the horses drink the water. It's all good. And then it's like, we're gonna turn back the way we came. Also, the horses might go a little faster when they go home because they realize snacks are coming. It's like, yeah, understandable. Fifold certainly knew. Fifold worked his way to the front of the group. So I was like riding right next to the instructor, and the instructor said, stay behind me. So there were times throughout the ride back where I was pulling off Fifold, stop a little bit, like take a quick break, stay behind the horse. And there were a couple of times where we were trotting on the way back to the ranch. The instructor turned around and was like, is everyone okay with trotting? Does everyone want to trot? And I was like, okay. And then she moved the horse in front of my horse to make sure she was definitely in front. When we got back to the barn, we actually got off the horses outside. So it turns out to get off the horses, we take both feet out of the stirrup, and then we lie our body down closer to the horse and then swing the right leg back over the horse and just jump down to the ground or let yourself fall down to the ground. From there, we took the reins and we brought the horses back to the same place where they were before. So I turned over Fiefeld back to his spot. It's like, good boy, Fiefeld, good horse. And then from there, I kind of just hung around the barn for a couple more minutes or returned the helmet. I did have to borrow a helmet from them, which was good because I was expecting to borrow a helmet from them anyway. And I found one that fit my head. I have no idea how I looked in it, but that doesn't really matter. From there, we came back and it was close to lunchtime. We did have to wait a little bit for lunch, but we spent some time knitting and then lunch happened and lunch was very, very good. It was a vegetable lasagna with garlic bread. I had 4 pieces of garlic bread by the time it was done. And there were some cookies for dessert. So I had all the cookies that I did not have yesterday because there was a wider selection. And the one that I liked the best was the one that tasted like a homemade crunch bar. Maybe it was, some other people thought it was closer to a Twix bar. After lunch, we walked as a group to the farm next door because the farm next door was a sheep farm. It turns out that the neighbors next door, one of them was a biologist who was involved with helping the whale that Free Willy is based off of, which is pretty cool. We just took a quick walk down the road along with one of the owners of the ranch, the one who was responsible for everything except the horses. The fun thing is her dog actually just trotted along. The dog's never leashed, but the dog just knows where to go. It just trots along and it's perfectly fine. It's definitely the difference between a dog who is trained on a farm and grows up on a farm versus most of the dogs I've interacted with in my life, which are dogs that live in cities or suburbs and have to be leashed and the owners don't even let them go outside unless they know where they're going or they're like contained in an area. On our way there, we ran into 2 sheep. They were so adorable. Although one of them started peeing when the picture was being taken and it's like, yeah, sheep's got a sheep, right? But we walked up and the one who was a biologist, one of the daughters, spoke English, so she was the one who did the talking, but her sister was there and her mother was there, and her mother is pretty much responsible for running the entire farm. The mother and her husband, who at this point is deceased, but back when he was still alive, they built that entire barn from scratch. They built that entire farm from scratch. It's impressive. It's a pretty big farm. But she explained about their sheep, and she took us in to see their sheep. In their heyday, where they were like a fully operating farm, they had between 250 to 300 sheep and about 13 cows, I want to say. Right now they're at about 60 sheep, so it's definitely gotten to be a smaller and smaller business. Most of the sheep were out in the field. The 2 sheep that met us in the road, their mother had died. They are bottle fed by the family both day and night, so they know to come back because they're getting fed. Most of the sheep were out in the field, but some of the sheep were in the barn. There were some baby lambs in the barn. There were some older rams in the barn too. There's a system for, it's like little cubicle cells in a way, like wooden fences, and there's like troughs that lead throughout the place that have the food that the sheep eat. And the way the doors open, it's like a swinging door thing. I guess the way to describe it, it's like the locks on canals, like the Panama Canal and the Suez Canal, where they had the doors where they lock it and it causes the water to go in and out. Well, this was completely dry stuff, but those doors operate in the same way to create a buffer zone to prevent the sheep from running out and escaping. But it turns out that with the way that they shear the sheep, they actually shear the sheep in 2 different stages. The top half of the sheep, but then they'll keep the wool on the bottom half of the sheep to help keep the egg-bearing stuff warm. It helps with the fertility and their biology that way, so it's like a split level sheep. They actually had 1 sheep for us today that they saved because they decided to hand shear the sheep for us so we could see the process, and it was really freaking cool. She had a pair of hand shears and her sister was straddling the sheep, preventing it from going anywhere, holding on to the head by the horns. Like the lady who was shearing just held the sheep still between her legs as well and just cut it small enough. It was just like shortcuts with the thing. When we got to touch that fleece, it was so soft. It was greasy, but it was soft, because if you only ever meet yarn in a chain craft store, you're going to get a lot of factory processed yarn and they wash a lot of the grease out. But if you're getting it straight off the sheep, there's like a lot of grease inside the sheep's wool. It's called lanolin. Basically, if you feel lanolin, it has the same texture as lotion that doesn't quite soak into your hand when you put it on. It's It feels somewhat similar to Vaseline. Yeah, there was another sheep there who I thought just had a super fur coat, and a couple of the other people thought the sheep was pregnant, but no, as it turns out, he was just really, really fat. He was born at the wrong time of year, so he was too young to send to the slaughterhouse when it was time to send the rams to the slaughterhouse to become meat. And then the biologist's daughter ended up falling in love with the sheep, so it's like, well, we can't send him to the slaughterhouse now, so they castrated him so he wouldn't become too aggressive. And every year he's just grown super fat. But he is very comfortable around people, and he let me pet him for 10 to 15 straight minutes. My right hand was covered in lanolin by the time I came back. They also showed us the mother's flower garden. She ended up starting to plant flowers for the summer, and some of them were already in bloom, and it was very nicely manicured. There's a fence around their house, and inside the fence is more like a lawn that you would expect to see in the States. It's very manicured with the flower beds, and the flowers are in the flower beds. There's a nice Icelandic rock that's acting as the edging for said flower beds. They had a cat, and the cat was there. Well, the dog wanted to play with the cat, so the dog ended up trying to catch the cat, and the ranch owner had to help rein the dog in to send her back outside, so that way the dog could not mess with the cat and then ruin the flowers in the process. We ended up walking back from there, and the place where we ended up visiting the sheep is named after a salmon in the river. I don't quite remember the whole story. But then after that, we came back and we spent a couple hours just knitting together as a group. This trip with the retreat, there's a sweater pattern. I think I know the name of the pattern now. It's the Lopapeysa sweater. So we're spending time making the Lopapeysa sweater with the designer of said Lopapeysa sweater, so if there are any questions, we can ask. Some of the other ladies are making cowls instead of sweaters so they can just get right to the color work and get to the part that's a little bit more difficult. So this actually right here, if I'm careful, because there's a needle attached, I don't want to lose it. Oh, it's attached to the sweater. This is the final sweater that we're going to be making, although it's not quite the right type of yarn. It's not the Icelandic yarn that is in it. This honestly feels like the respun from Lion Brand, but I'm not sure that for a fact. I just know she got the yarn from Joanne's, which is where Lion Brand is sold. What makes it Lopapeysa is like the design and the yoke that's right here. I don't think this part is part of the final pattern that she gave us, but you have to try different things when you're designing to see how they look and how much you like it. So I made good progress on my sweater today during all the conversations. This is my sweater so far, and I'm at the point where I need to start a sleeve. So this was actually a perfect stopping place for today. So just the constant going around with that, I could really focus on the conversations that were happening. There were lots of conversations that happened. About midway through, half the group that didn't go riding in the first part of the day ended up going riding in the second part of the day. A couple people that were riding in the first group ended up trying to go riding in the second group, and 2 of the 3 were successful. But I ended up going riding. I just sat and knit. It was quite a calm thing. I think the books are still here. Yeah. This is like the American copy of the book that the designer, Toni Carr, also known as Joan of Arc, wrote. So this is the American version, and then she has the British version right here. And it's opened up to a current page right now because one of the other people is making this pattern instead of the pattern that is the trip pattern. So I mostly stayed on the couch with trips to the bathroom back and forth until supper time. I had a pack of tissues in my pocket, which I didn't realize I lost until the little 5-year-old, who is the daughter of the owners of the ranch, ended up coming up to me. He's like, "Do you know who this belongs to?" I was like, "Oh yeah, it's mine, thank you." A couple hours before dinner, they brought into the wine again. The other woman opened up the wine, so we ended up pouring some wine. So I had a glass of wine today, and I was only poured half a glass, but honestly, that's all I really needed. After that, we had supper, and supper was haddock. There was poppy seed bread and roasted potatoes. I just had water with that too. I made sure to save room for dessert because the owner of the ranch mentioned that she was making dessert. The desserts have been good. She ended up making a spear cake. It's probably more like a pie than it is a cake. It's similar to a cheesecake, except instead of what would typically be a cheesecake was yogurt. And there was like a crust underneath it. And there were strawberries and blueberries and other delicious fruit. on the top. Maybe it was blackberries. I'm not sure what the last fruit was. Instead of just leaving it out and letting people cut into it, the owner actually cut a lot of the wedges and started serving it for herself. It was amazing. She ended up making 2 of them. I think both of them were finished by the end of the night. So I ate my first piece and I was just still sitting at the table. We had a very entertaining conversation with dinner, and the mother put her plate down and she put her toddler's plate down. The owner also has a toddler, and the toddler acted like a toddler. Toddler's gonna toddle. Very messy with the food. He kept eating the fish and he wanted more of the fish, so he ended up taking the fish from his mom's plate. But after serving the cake, the owner of the ranch finally got a chance to sit down, and that's when her 5-year-old daughter came over and said, "Hey, I want to sit in your lap." And she's like, "No, I need to eat." So I suggested to the 5-year-old, how about a compromise? I'll let you sit in my lap so that way you can still be right next to your mom, but then your mom still gets to eat. And she said no. I was like, okay. But then she got really close to her mom and she's like, "Hey, you're getting too close to the table and you're going to have to go away if you can't find a way to not get so close." Oh, I was like, "If you can't calm down, you'll have to move further away." So that's when she decided to sit on my lap, and it's like, okay. So I was the chair for a little bit. And then when I went to go get a second slice of the cake, she took my seat. I wasn't going to kick a 5-year-old out of my seat, so I just sat in the empty chair next to it. So the mom was able to eat her dinner. One of the other ladies in the group told her all about making fairy houses, which that was an amazing amount of knowledge to have about making fairy houses. To make fairy dust, you basically create chalk powder and then you sprinkle flower petals in it, and then you throw it in the air and you hope for the fairies to come, and then you build them little houses. And the fairies will only go into houses that they like, and you'll know they've been used because your structure collapses. What a delightfully mystic way of looking at the world. What a harmless little fairy tale. It may be true, it may not be true, but honestly, even if it isn't true, there's no harm in believing in it. Shortly after that, I ended up going to the room to appease the owl because I did not want to lose my Duolingo streak. And I found out I did end up missing a full day. I didn't realize I had missed a full day. And then I came out, I knit some more, and then a couple of the other ladies decided that they were going to go to the hot tub, so I decided to join them. That was also an experience. It's been a while since I've been in a hot tub too. Just the contrast between sitting in the warm water and then feeling like the mist on the face. Ooh, that was like a delightfully cold mist on the face. That was like such a nice contrast. And then also the headrest of where I was sitting was in an awkward place. It turns out I was sitting in the part where I was just supposed to lay out among the one whole side because of where the jets were located. Getting my swimsuit wet the day before we were going to the spa means it might still be damp when we go to the spa because I only brought the one swimsuit, but I did find a hairdryer in the room, so that's always a possibility. I did start feeling a little bit lightheaded out after coming out, so it's like, okay, I need some water. So I did mix some powdered Pedialyte into this water. I've drunk it all, so at least I know I will be somewhat hydrated. I'm probably going to drink some more water when I get back into my room, which I figured since everyone's in bed, this would be the perfect time to use the common area because I'm not sure how thin the walls are, and I figured the common area is a little bit further removed from the rooms. But yeah, the one thing that the knitting designer brought for us is she actually brought blank pages, so if people wanted to redesign the horse pattern, they could. So one of the other people redesigned the horse pattern today. So that way if people wanted to make like a different design or they wanted to create their own design, they could. They had the recipe for the sweater. So it turns out Icelandic people have what they call the recipes versus the patterns, where the pattern's only the yoke of the sweater and then the recipe is the rest of the sweater, which is an interesting way to think about it. Yeah, it was a nice, calm, relaxing day. If I just hold this open a little bit here. So I actually was balancing that on the couch. So we have this huge sectional couch, and then we got some chairs here. And then that's like the remaining part of the couch right there. So it's a pretty big room. It's good enough for the amount of people who are able to stay at this house. Tomorrow we have plans to ride the horses again, and we have plans to knit again, and we have plans to go to a spa. At this point, I'm probably going to go to bed, even though I don't really feel tired. Also, you see how light it is outside? It's somewhat close to midnight right now. It's that light outside, and it's midnight. Impressive, yeah? So impressive. This is like sundown time. Yeah, I'm gonna get some sleep. Get ready for the nice, exciting day tomorrow. So that was today's entertainment. Have a nice day.
So it's very, very nice.